Seahawks fans, wherever you may be. Thanks for listening to the show. Join your hosts, Bill Alvstad and Keith Myers, as we talk Seahawks football. Hey, hi, Seahawks fans. Welcome back to another episode of the Seahawks Playbook podcast. I'm your host, Bill Alvstad, sitting down with Keith Myers here to talk Seahawks football, giving you a free agency update, kind of a look at the roster construction as it stands now after kind of the first wave of free agency, second wave of free agency, probably the last wave of free agency for the Seahawks. Looks like Seattle is intentionally compiling those 2027 comp picks. They haven't done that for a couple of years. Obviously, with the trade that we made earlier last season with Shaheed, that they were just not going to be all in on this draft. They traded away a fourth and a fifth to make that deal happen. And so they were left with 4 picks in the draft, a first, second, third. Obviously, those picks conveyed at the last pick in each of those rounds, and then a 6th round pick. And they just don't like this draft. I mean, that's just the way it is. Now, there's going to be a couple players that come out of the draft. They're going to be key role players, maybe even a starter, in the back end of the first round, maybe even the second round. But, overall, I think the depth in this draft is poor. I think after you get past round 4, you're looking at just really roster filler type stuff. They didn't do much in free agency either. They let some guys go at the, kind of instrumental players, Keith, Woolen, Walker, Mafe, Bryant. They retained a lot of the kind of middle of the road, low cost level players in free agency back on the roster for 2026. What are your thoughts overall on the strategy? If there's anybody that stood out as far as the players either that we added or players that we lost that you want to kind of to talk about, welcome in.
Well, when your stated plan is to try and run this back as much as possible because you just want to spend your money on your own guys and keep the group together that won a Super Bowl, letting Woolen, Walker, Mafe, and Bryant all leave within 12 hours of each other doesn't scream that. The only guys that they got back that had hit free agency that were had interest from other teams are Shaheed and Josh Jobe. And so that means 2 out of 6 guys that there was interest from another team they got. And so that to
and they
me
could have signed the entire class back. I mean, they still have $43 million of cap space available, even after all the deals.
And the other thing is, we're not talking about old players, right? Woolen's 27, Walker's 26, Mafe's 28, Bryant's 27. These are guys in their prime, and they let them walk. In a year when there's no draft pick, so you're not replacing them through the draft, and then they didn't spend the money in free agency. So I'm left confused. I mean, I trust the process and all of that. I think they know that they've got guys ready to step into some of these roles, and they have plans in place for others. But it does, go counter to what they said when they said that they were going to try and retain all their guys. They did not retain 4 key guys.
I mean, there was an asterisk to that statement. If I recall, John Schneider kind of said, based on our wanting to keep the 70-man roster in mind as we look at these deals, it all needs to fit together still. And when you take a look at Reek Woolen's deal, 1 year, $15 million, or 1 year, 12 up to 15. I think that's what you and I had talked about. Maybe the Seahawks would be in on.
Yeah, that would have been
clearly
a great contract for him.
They could have made that deal and chose not to. Now we can talk about that and maybe the theory behind that, what's going on. Ken Walker, I think, was I wouldn't have paid what the Chiefs gave Kent 3 years, $43 million.
That's a lot for running back on a second contract.
Right. Close to $15 million a year. Boy, Mafe, 3 years, $60 million. That's $20 million a year.
Yeah,
Kobe
that was
Bryant,
crazy,
right? See, I wouldn't have done that deal, right? And so you do have to kind of pay attention to what these guys are getting. And I think they had a line. These guys didn't fall under the line, and they're gone. Now, you're right in that we didn't go out and replace them with replacement level players at those spots. Although we did get Job back in the fold. We did make a couple of moves, low level, low tier kind of moves back. There's some other guys on the roster like Okada that looks like he's just going to slide right into Bryant's spot. Now they'll have to backfill that Tayakota spot where it's, an unrestricted guy coming in or a low level draft pick to kind of come in and fill those shoes. Although we did sign a player in free agency. We'll talk about all that in just a second. And then the Boye Mafe thing, dude, it was unrealistic and I think he was probably the guy that in a couple of shows that we've talked about Boye Mafe and the idea that of which players they would bring back or try to bring back, he was probably the guy we assumed would probably walk. He was, the third or fourth edge rusher on the roster as it's currently constructed. And while the production was okay, it wasn't like primo superior, and he was going to get paid like a top end edge rusher in this draft,
which
just from his attributes and his age. And he did. So let's talk about the guys on our own roster first that we retained, and then let's pivot to the recent signings. And they made some moves today, outside free agents, finally. I don't necessarily mind the strategy part of it. I get it. I understand the draft is being talent poor this year and kind of saving those draft picks for next year. We can talk about that as well. But let's talk about Josh Jobe. I like the signing, 3 year, $24 million. Now that guy came in as an undrafted free agent. He had been around a couple of different teams, came onto the Seahawks, practice squad guy initially, came onto the roster, earned a spot when there was an injury to Witherspoon last year, right? Got some playing time, looked like he was going to be decent and able to develop a little bit, which he did this season. Reek Woolen was essentially benched. Jobe came in, took his job. They kind of split some of those reps as the season went on, but Jobe earned a right to basically be the starting outside corner for this team. And I thought that was a good move, bringing him back. And the number that we did it at is totally reasonable.
Yeah, $8 million per for a guy who beat out Woolen, who signed a deal for, what was it, $15 million, right? I mean, that makes a lot of sense for Seattle. Joe,
and he's only got a $4.5 million 2026 cap hit with that.
Yeah. So let's talk about Rashid Shaheed, because I think you want to talk about this one. You don't like this.
Yeah. Well, you're paying Rashid. Okay, so the contract is 3 years, $51 million. Okay, $20 million signing bonus, $23 million total in 2026, $11.75 million base in 2027, $14.7 million base in 2028, $34.75 million fully guaranteed, for a player that had 18 receptions in 12 games and 3 return touchdowns for the Seahawks. Now, that kind of a contract is a number 2 wide receiver on like 90% of the rosters in the NFL. That's kind of where that pay scale is at. And so you're paying for future production or kind of projection of what he might do, not what he was able to do in the same basic offense. Now you're going to have a different coordinator this year, but You're trusting that development, that relationship with Sam Darnold continues to grow, and he's a more integrated part of that offense, and hopefully get those receptions up to like 45 at a minimum. You're probably wanting a number 2 wide receiver in this type of offense where Njigba's getting over 100 receptions. You want that number 2 guy to be getting close to 70. And he was nowhere near that. And so it's hard for me to understand why they paid him unless they were absolutely positive he was going to be a key factor in this offense.
So he moved over midseason, right? And if you're looking at his production in Seattle, where he didn't have a training camp and didn't have any rapport with his quarterback or anything like that, I think that's only part of the picture. Look at what he was doing in New Orleans before the trade with a lot less talent around him, especially at quarterback, right? In 9 games, he had 44 reception for 499 yards. Right?
Yeah. And we really didn't have a great number 2 option in this offense, especially after Torrey Horton went down. Nobody really stepped up and filled that void. We kind of split those receptions among tight ends and running backs and the wide receiver room, of which he really didn't have many.
Yeah.
And so I was just a little confused. Now I get it, right? What you said, 45 receptions, 9 games. And you go back and you look at how Clint Kubiak used him the year before. Yeah, there's opportunity there for sure. It's just that when he showed up in Seattle, it just didn't happen. And so I don't know if it's the scheme. I don't know if it's the relationship with Darnold, the trust level, all that kind of stuff. Those are factors that I'm sure went into the equation of how they put this deal together. Obviously, they didn't want him to go. They paid him, and he gives you all that upside in the return game. But yeah, and we had the money to spend, so I would rather have had him on the roster than not. I just don't know about that number, but it is what it is, and I'm happy to have him. It's not like I don't like the player. I just want him to do more.
Well, and I just think
and expect him to do more.
I think that you have to give him a chance when he's actually on the team during a training camp and has a chance to integrate into the offense and build a rapport with Sam Darnold and all of that, because he's produced throughout his career. And he's done so with significantly less talent around him. And so I think it's just a case of like wide receiver is a hard position to be productive on after a trade. And we saw kind of the low end of that. But if you took his numbers with New Orleans before the trade and you projected them out over a season, you're talking about 80 receptions for 950 yards. You'll take that out of number 2.
Oh, sure. All day.
And so
plus the return upside. Yeah.
And so it's just a matter of
that. It's unusual for John Schneider to pay for projection. Like he did that with Nwoso. It just kind of comes to mind as far as a recent player that came from a team where production was average, but the upside and skill set and
work ethic,
athleticism, all that kind of stuff were all the things on the ledger, but the production wasn't there yet. And he paid him to come over, and it worked out, at least initially. And then he got hurt a couple different times. But this is kind of the same thing. It's like, yeah, the production was there on another team. He came over, didn't produce, and still got paid. I thought that was kind of interesting. But again, it came down to probably Ken Walker. Do you pay Ken Walker? Do you pay Shaheed? And at the end of the day, wide receiver position on this team was a bigger need and would have more impact on a play-by-play basis in the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
Kobe Bryant, losing Kobe Bryant. What do you think? What do you think of the safety room now that Kobe's gone? We can talk about the player that we just signed too.
Well, okay. So, Kobe Bryant looked good, and he was a solid contributor on a very, very good defense. But his value to me declined when he got hurt and against in basically must-win games didn't play. And it wasn't that was the problem. It was that his replacement, Tyakota, stepped in and the defense did not take any step back. In these must-win games where you had to come up big, Tyakota came in and filled in the role. And if you didn't know that Bryant was the starter, you wouldn't have realized that there was a backup in there.
That's how good the coaching staff is, man.
It is. And
I'm not taking anything away from Dakota, but come on. I mean, it's coaching to get a player like Tyakota ready to play at that level.
Yeah.
Midway through the season.
And you look at what they did, that remember that a year ago, right? Midway through the 2024 season, Kobe Bryant was a guy on a bench that played special teams. And then he got himself a chance to play because somebody got hurt and never looked back. He just took over that role and ran with it. But then he got hurt and Tyakota slipped in and did the same exact thing.
Yeah.
And so it does make me wonder if the Seahawks didn't do the right thing by avoiding paying a guy like Kobe Bryant, 13 and a third million per year. I agree. Player, I really wanted him back. I'm not trying to say that.
I'm totally agreeing with you. Absolutely.
But I think, given his position in this defense, that it wasn't worth the money. Not when Tyakota can give you the same thing for 1/13 of the salary.
Here's the deal, right? And you can say the same thing about Drake Thomas. They're really super confident in their coaching and their scheme.
They should be,
and they should be, and they are. And I get that, and it makes John Schneider's job really easy because you pay the really important players. They're still going to extend JSN. They're still going to extend Witherspoon with this cap space that we have. And maybe obviously that's all part of putting this puzzle together and why we have so much money remaining. We haven't gone out and spent a lot in free agency. They want to get those extensions in and have some of those cap hits in 2026. They re-signed Josh Jones. Chris Stoll came back. Finley came back. They tendered Bobo. Brandon Peely just signed a deal today. The only players we really didn't bring back were Derek Young, Cody White, and Chaz Surratt, which I'm fine with. Those are replacement level players.
Mm-hmm. And they may still come back.
And they may come back. You know, they just didn't want to tender them at that number.
Mm-hmm.
It's interesting. I like what they did. The patience, again, John Schneider knows what he's doing. Everyone is clamoring for Seattle to sign the latest, greatest running back to replace Ken Walker. It didn't happen. We signed Wilson, Emmanuel Wilson. Now, good running back. You go out and look at his tape. He's perfectly fine, well suited for the offense. A bigger guy, 5'10", 226. Plays physical, does not just glide out of bounds. He takes it to the defense on every snap. That's the kind of player that you want. And they were patient and just waited for a guy like that to kind of get into their price range. I think they paid him like $2.1 million for a single season, which kept him out of the cap, the comp pick equation for 2027. So it was kind of the perfect sign for them.
Would you agree that he's Charbonnet light?
Yes.
Same,
also same
same style of back and everything, but not as good.
Not as good, not as dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
But also he's going to fight for yards for you. He's going
to cost you. It cost you basically nothing.
Yeah, he's like a bigger Halani in a way. He's not going to be your lead back, but by committee, here's what the Seahawks are going to do. They're going to, their running back room is kind of set now. They've got Cam Akers and Jacardia Wright and whatchamacallit's coming back.
Charbonnet.
McIntosh. Obviously Charbonnet, mid-season, but they're gonna and Halani, they're gonna draft the guy. That's the deal. That's what I think the plan is with one of their first 3 picks, and we'll just see how that falls. But to me, that's kind of the plan as it pencils out right now.
Mm-hmm.
But Emmanuel Wilson is good. 1,000 yards rushing, 8 total TDs in his last 2 seasons with Green Bay. It's a deal worth $2.1 million. Last season, last 2 games, he finished with a 107-yard game and an 82-yard game. Perfectly fine. A 4.9 average in 2024, 4.0 average in 2025. Really decent backup running back, number 2 running back.
Yeah. If you need someone to be Zach Charbonnet while you wait for Zach Charbonnet, he's your guy.
Yes.
And at $2.1 million,
you're gonna,
who cares?
Yeah, exactly. And then in the draft, you're going to look at Julian Price. You're going to be looking at Mike Washington, Emmett Johnson, Jonah Coleman, Singleton, Katron Allen, Desmond Claiborne, those kind of guys, rounds 1 through 3 are going to be potential Seahawk running backs. And if their guy is there when they're selecting, that's going to be the pick, I think. Now safety. We just signed a player from the former Indianapolis Colts player, Rodney Thomas. He started a lot of games in his first 2 seasons, 25 games over his first 2 seasons. But he's been a backup and mostly special teams since then. So I think, based on what they paid him, based on what the expectation is, he hasn't really started a game in 2 years. He's going to come in and play special teams. He's got 757 career special team snaps, including 278 during the 2025 season. So I think that's it. He's filling an Akota role at the beginning of 2025. That's where Ty Akota was in relationship to Kobe Bryant. He came in and obviously filled those shoes at certain times, and then is going to assume that starting role in 2020. At least we all assume the starting role in 2026, and let's say draft the guy, in the first round or something that's going to come in right away. And
I don't think he's going to. I don't think he's going to assume a starting role. I think Ty Akota is going to assume the starting role.
No, that's what I mean. No, Ty Akota. I was thinking it could be a first round draft pick, maybe that would.
Yes. So what I would look at with him is they also brought back DeAnthony Bell.
Yeah.
I thought I read that he came back
just today.
This is a guy who looked great in the preseason, didn't make the roster, hung around on the practice squad, got called up, and played special teams and all of that, played a little bit on defense for 1 game when they needed him. He's going to be given a chance along with, this guy from Indy. Those guys are going to compete for the third safety role. You've got Julian Love. You've got Ty Akota, and those 2 guys are going to compete for number 3. And yes, I know I'm leaving out Nick Imanwari because I don't consider him a safety. I consider him a Swiss Army knife that does a million different things, and you create a position for him because he's so dynamic and so versatile, and he doesn't count as one of the safeties in terms of the defense. So really, you're looking for a third safety, and it's going to be one of those 2 guys, I think.
Yeah. So let's talk about the cornerback situation. So we allowed Reek Woolen to walk, but we retained Josh Jobe. There might be a depth situation on the roster overall. I think that they'll probably fill in the draft.
Yeah, I would agree.
And I'm totally fine with that. I think that we've got enough depth there to kind of go into the season. Obviously, I think they'll probably add to it. They might even wait until after the draft and sign a free agent to come in and just add some depth to the room. They've done that over the years as well. It doesn't affect the comp picks for 2027 when you do that. And then draft a guy, whether it's the first pick overall. This depends on how the draft falls, and who lines up for them. But I think, you're probably going to look at a linebacker. You're probably going to look at an edge player. You're probably going to look at a corner. If I had to bet money, 3 out of the 4 picks would go to those position groups.
Yeah. And you look at, there's going to be guys available in free agency after the draft, guys that are veteran players that can come in and give you something interesting. I'd be surprised if at this point, a guy like Marshawn Lattimore is actually on a roster. He's a guy that you might be able to get after the draft for, $1.5 or $2 million and give him a shot at, on a prove it deal and say, hey, reestablish your value by coming in and doing good things for us. Akella Witherspoon is still out there and doesn't look like he's going to have any suitors pre-draft.
Douglas is still out there.
Yeah, but I think he's actually being courted from what I've read. Like there are teams that are still pursuing him, whereas the guys I mentioned just aren't. They're guys that aren't. People aren't talking about them. They're not interested. Jack Jones of the Dolphins played 91% of the snaps for them last year, and is sitting there without offers. So if he's available after the draft or just before the draft, and you can get him on a 1-year deal for something under 4, you do it, and then you be good. You're done.
So you opened the show by kind of being or saying you were disappointed that Seattle came out and basically said, hey, listen, we kind of want to run this thing back. We're going to sign as many players as we can. We're going to, try to keep the roster together. Really, I thought at the end of the day, they did a really good job doing that. Yes, they lost Ken Walker, Bryant, and Mafe, but they kept Shaheed. They kept Job. They kept Drake Thomas. They signed Ernest Jones to a 3-year extension last offseason. They got Helani back on a 1-year deal. Okota, Brady Russell came back on a 2-year deal. DeAnthony Bell's coming back. We extended both Abe Lucas and Charles Cross this season. Chris Stoll's coming back, the long snapper. Josh Jones on a 1-year deal. We can talk about that a little bit more if you want, because I think that's a totally underrated signing. Resigned AJ Finley, the other safety that we haven't mentioned yet. We originally tendered Jake Bobo. Brandon Peely came back on a 1-year, $2 million deal today as well. So that's a lot of players returning to a roster, a Super Bowl roster. And really we're talking about Mafe, Walker, Bryant, and Woolen not coming back. Now, yes, those are some of the better players on the roster. And we really didn't replace those players with replacement level players to those levels, but we're not done yet. It's still March, 10th of March, and we still have time, and we still have the draft. Yes, we only have 4 picks currently. John Schneider may increase those, but we've got, I think our first 3 picks are, within the top 100 players coming out of the draft. And John Schneider's shown time and time again that he can turn those into pretty decent assets, and we'll see how that goes. So I feel pretty good overall about the strategy, about, the draft coming up, getting a couple players that are going to be key role players out of that. And just kind of want to hear your thoughts about where you feel overall the roster is, and if there are any positions that you feel still really need to be addressed.
Well, I look at it as you have 4 key guys, whether they're starters or key role players, right? That we keep talking about with Bryant, Woolen, Walker, and Mafe. And you've got 4 draft picks. One of them is a 6th round pick. You can't count on that. So you have 3 draft picks where you can actually get players. You lost 4 guys, and you've got 3 picks that you can use to replace them. And these are key, like, guys, like starters, key guys. That's a lot. That's a loss, right? That's a talent drop overall. And so they've got work to do. Absolutely. But also ultimately, like we said, losing Bryant when you got Tyakota and you can just kind of like mix and match there, and then you're replacing a depth position. Okay,
Right.
maybe you've already solved that one, but they haven't solved edge rusher, especially if DeMarcus Lawrence decides to retire.
That would be huge.
Then they're in a world of hurt at the
I've
edge
heard
position.
two indicators in the last 24 hours that say that he's coming back. One was a player that knows him and said that he's coming back. Like,
I think so
that
too.
dude's coming back. That sort of a thing on a podcast. He said he's coming back.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
I would believe I believe that as well, but until he comes out and says it, you never know. But losing one of your key rotation guys there, and losing your one of the best running backs in the NFL, and losing a guy who's a very underrated, at least in Seattle, cornerback because of some weird plays and attitude issues, but overall is an elite athlete at corner.
Yes.
Those are hard guys to replace, and they've got three draft picks to replace them. They've got to nail this draft in order to replace them, because this is a team that was the Super Bowl winner, was one of the best teams in the NFL, was one of probably the best team in the NFL. But the Rams in their division were the number 2 team. They were right there and really damn good. You can't afford to fall back towards the pack because the Rams will pass.
And they were pretty aggressive in free agency, at least initially, to get their cornerback room taken care of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if I was to predict, in the draft, I would go edge first. That running back is probably, in the 2nd round. And then I would worry about my cornerback room in that with that 3rd pick, because you're basically looking for depth. Tariq Woolen was a depth piece. Let's be honest. Now, he started here and there, and that brought him in different packages. He was on the field a lot because you want to put your best players on the field, and they did that. And I'm going to miss his length and his makeup speed. Like, those two things, I think
that makeup speed. Yeah. It's crazy.
And so you kind of want to find that in the draft, or just a really good solid corner. I could see them going corner in the 1st round too. And just kind of locking that down, because Boye Mafe was a rotation piece. I just don't know if you can get a really good Boye Mafe rotation piece in this draft at pick 64.
He played 50% of the snaps. I don't know if that's, he's a backup, right? He played roughly the same amount as the quote unquote starter above him. Like, all 4 of the corners played between 40 and 60% of the or not corners, edge players played between 40 and 60% of the snaps. It was really even across all 4 of them. So
it's going to be really rough for this team if they can't reach an agreement with Nwoso on restructuring his deal, and they end up cutting him for whatever reason or whatever, or they just have to swallow the contract and just keep him here. And then if Lawrence decides to walk away or whatever,
if that's a problem with both of them
hurt
at a very, very key position. And then
And
I
that's
still
why
think
I
that
think they knew
this is a team that
they knew
needs.
going into this, they knew going into free agency, Keith. Otherwise, they would have made different choices. I would think.
Yeah, this is a team that still needs a wide receiver. Like, I don't trust that Cooper Kupp is not going to continue to decline, and I don't trust that Torrey Horton is going to return to the
What's going
form
on to
that he
Torrey
had
Horton?
at the beginning of the year and stay at that level and not get hurt again.
So let's talk about Torrey Horton. So you and I were texting the other day, and we were just speculating because that's really all we're left with when they don't come out and tell you exactly what the injury is. So everyone refers to this thing as a shin injury. And it just came out, it was reported, I can't remember, I think maybe Corbin Smith came out and said that Torrey Horton is not expected to participate in off-season activities, which means that he won't be ready until training camp. Like his first appearance in 2026 is going to be training camp, if then, right?
Which
and
means
we're
he
like,
will
what could
have
keep
not
him
played
out?
Mid-season to training camp.
Yeah, what could keep him out from Halloween until training camp? And you describe it as a shin injury, and the only thing that you and I could come up with is a stress fracture.
Mm-hmm.
So what are your thoughts around that?
There's a couple of things. One is it could be a torn muscle. There's a muscle there on the shin that you use to lift your toe, and if that's torn, which is hard to tear that muscle just because it's hard to get an injury mechanism in place where that would happen. But if that were the case, like that could be it. I'm more concerned about an avulsion fracture on that bone. What that means is that is where the ligament, where it attaches to the bone, actually peels the bone back. And so you end up with an actual piece of bone that's been peeled off the leg. That is a slow healing injury.
Jeez.
So that would be a shin injury that would take forever to heal. And it does sound horrific. But that, so that's my biggest concern until we hear otherwise. I'm just scared at that, but that is something that will heal eventually and he'll be back. But his inability to get back to healthy and stay healthy throughout, his rookie year, and played half the season, and
college,
and in college he was hurt a lot. Makes me like, do we count on him? I don't.
You add that to the idea that Rashid Shaheed was unproductive last year. I know you kind of point to that New Orleans stuff, and rightly so. Nonetheless, it makes me a little uneasy looking at the room. Like, where's the production going to come from this group?
And Cooper Kupp continues to decline. Basically,
even if he came back the same player, that's still going to 40 catches or whatever. I mean,
it goes back to being the JSN or nothing show. And I don't like that. So,
I mean, it got you to the Super Bowl, but I hear you.
But I look at that and I worry. So wide receiver is a concern for me. Right guard is a concern for me until they replace Bradford. I know that you keep talking about like there's reason to show faith in him, but I don't see it. And he's the weakest link on a line that
no doubt
it was greatly improved. So we want to say it's good, but greatly improved when you're that bad does not necessarily equate to good. It was okay. And I think that he is by far the weakest link and can and should be replaced. So I'm now looking at 3 draft picks where you can find key players, and you've got 5 guys that have to be replaced.
Well, that's not even the total of it. I'll say this about Bradford, and you're right about the weakest link, but overall the offensive line, if you would have told me before 2025, and we talked about it, if you were to take the 28th overall ranked offensive line in 2024, which is where we were at, and at the end of the 2025 season, you would have told me that overall that group would have been ranked 12th. in the NFL, if you combine pass blocking and run blocking together, just an overall ranking, I would have said, absolutely, I'll take that 100% every day. Because, know, in September, when we did our prediction show, we were like, okay, this could be a playoff caliber team, deep into the playoffs, potentially even a Super Bowl caliber team, if with a big asterisk, the offensive line could get to at least league average. And Sam Darnold could kind of give you that Minnesota season again. We were like, okay, we'll take that. The running game needs to get going because we didn't run the ball very good in 2024. We didn't know if we could do that. And all those things came to fruition. And we went to the Super Bowl and we won it with this offensive line. So worse things could happen to run back the same offensive line again with the same offensive line coach who we both love. But talk to me about the incremental improvement, even if we were to throw a rookie in there, Keith, that we drafted 32 overall. What, and it may or may not be better than Bradford, right? You don't know. You're kind of rolling the dice with that one. Talk to me about what an incremental improvement at either pass blocking or run blocking would give you at right guard that would make your team better.
Because he is of, the 64 starting guards in the NFL, he's probably 62 or 63. That he literally is in that range. You're going to get incremental improvement from left guard, probably from center if you bring back the same two guys, because they, more experience and they're just going to get better. But you're not going to get any improvement from right guard unless you replace him. And going with a rookie, whether it be pick 32 or my guess is probably pick 64. Are you going to get
Mason Richmond, Bryce Cable-Dew, or Christian Haynes makes a big step?
Yeah. So basically, you're looking at, are they going to make rookie mistakes like you saw this last year at left guard? Yes, but you know what? Bradford made those style of mistakes where you misread something and you don't block anyone all the freaking time. So you're not actually losing any by going to a rookie there. Hopefully what you're gaining is upside. You're gaining someone who's more steady, and you're not, you're not losing anything. He was not good enough to make me want to have him come back. Like, okay, he's really cheap, and he did start on a Super Bowl winning team. So you bring him back, but you have to make him fight for his job. You've got to give him a challenge. And maybe that's Bryce Cable-Dew. I like Bryce Cable-Dew. I think he's got a chance to be really good. A little short in the arms, but everything else about him screams NFL starter. But there has to be competition there. If you bring him back as the, penciled in as starter, I think that's a mistake in your offseason plan. You have to get better, because him getting better means the offense gets more efficient. It gets where your third down conversion rate goes up. Your ability to just put together long drives of like 12, 13 plays goes way up. Anthony Bradford is good for one or two drive killing plays per game. You don't get enough drives to let one player kill two of them. It just doesn't happen.
So I have a question for you.
So yeah, what?
Okay. So beyond offensive line, looking at the defensive line roster, still sticking in the trenches, but going to the defensive line. I'm going to just list all the players currently rostered: Leonard Williams, Byron Murphy, Jerron Reed, Mike Morris, Rylie Mills, DeMarcus Lawrence, Nwoso, Derek Hall, Jared Ivey, Connor O'Toole. You had already mentioned a couple podcasts ago about Rylie Mills, your excitement about Rylie Mills and what he might be able to add to the defense in 2026. Rightly so. Is there anybody else?
This is a guy with second round pick talent who dropped to the 5th round for the Seahawks because it was not expected that he would play at all. Now they got him back very late in the season. He played a couple games before the playoffs started, and didn't have a massive role, but had a small rotational role. And then we saw in the Super Bowl some of the flash that we expected, as a college player. He had a big sack in the Super Bowl. He was disruptive
So
in that game.
Remind listeners about Rylie Mills and the body type that he is and the type of role that he would play versus a guy like Boye Mafe, who is a completely different type of player.
Yeah, so those aren't the same type of player. Rylie Mills is a much bigger guy. He's a guy that's going to play, be one of the grunts in the middle. Probably your 5 tech most of the time, occasionally your 3. So he's going to be in there. If Jerron Reed weren't coming back, I'd probably pencil Rylie Mills in as the 3rd starter on the defensive line at this point. But you've got
Williams, Murphy, Mills.
Yeah. I would say right now you got, Williams, Murphy, Reed, and then Mills is the 4th guy.
Right.
He's one of the big uglies in the middle. And we saw in the Super Bowl some flashes of potential that this is why everyone was so excited about it.
Like you said, 5 tech. He can play a little outside of that too in a pinch. Like you can line him up at the 7-eye and all that kind of stuff. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if I would in a different scheme. Yes, I wouldn't put him outside in this scheme because it's going to ask him to cover.
Well,
and you don't want to see a guy that big in coverage.
That's what I was going to ask you. The very next question is, I was going to talk about the scheme. I was talking about Mike Macdonald, and if we did not replace Mafe on a equal level, skill level player coming in, could Mike Macdonald scheme around it by players like Knight or Patrick O'Connell or Drake Thomas or Connor O'Toole or Jared Ivey, to be able to kind of manipulate the line of scrimmage a little bit to make up for speed?
Maybe that's a big ask because the guys that you listed are not guys that are going to move any needle. Maybe Jared Ivey, but he is bigger. He's a 5 tech. He's an inside guy. The Seahawks used him in practice and in a couple of games. They lined him up outside.
They do have him listed as an edge.
I know they have him listed as an edge, but
he's a 285-pound guy. I mean, he would normally be in a 4-3 defense. Now, Mike Macdonald's talked about using 4-3 alignments with 3-4 skill level players.
Yeah, he actually said that they were essentially a 4-3 because of Nick Emanwari. That having him in there essentially converted them into a 4-3, even though they're still playing a 3-4. But the way you bring the linebackers in and you have a guy up at the line of scrimmage and all of that,
and that's how Jared Ivey can get on the field, right? And a Rylie Mills could move out slightly for you. He doesn't necessarily have to drop back into coverage on that particular play, but scheme wise,
you could get a lot more out of a Jared Ivey in a 4-3. And as this team, looks more and more like a 4-3 in order to accommodate
you got to scheme around the players that you've got.
Yeah. And so that is a guy that because he can set an edge and he can, get upfield and those things. But he's not a guy you ever want dropping back. You don't want him moving backwards. You don't even really want him moving lateral. You want him moving forward. And as long as you have him doing that in whatever play you call while he's on the field, if he's moving forward, you're in good shape. If he's doing anything else, you're in trouble.
It's true. It's true right now. Anyway.
Yeah. And so
unless he were to drop like 15 pounds, I don't see it any other way either. I mean, he's kind of a bull rush kind of a guy and an edge setter. I mean, that's who he is.
He's not a guy that is going to be super mobile and in coverage and those kind of things. Like that's
So
just
if
not
you
who
were
he
to rank
is.
edge in the draft as far as a need, how would you rank it?
Probably fourth.
Really?
I think, yeah. I think that, well, maybe it's higher. I don't know. I'm just looking at, I'm like,
Here's the
they need a corner.
cornerbacks on the roster, just so you
If
know. Devin
they need a,
Witherspoon, Josh Jobe, Nehemiah Pritchett. The end.
yeah, yeah. Corner is number one for me. And I look at that and I go, okay, well, what else you got? Running backs, probably two. And then it's kind of a toss up, with a couple of the positions. You've got guard, you've got wide receiver, and you've got edge.
I would say
You've got
guard is probably going to be my fourth. Running back is my third. Edge is my
really,
second. And corner is my first, probably.
yeah,
And
corners one.
you could go edge, corner. You can rotate those. I mean,
the thing about edge is at this moment that, assuming DeMarcus Lawrence and Uchenna Nwoso are back, which at this point I see no reason not to assume that, because even if they don't rework Uchenna Nwoso's deal, they can afford to keep him on despite his crazy cap number. They have to spend the money, right? And so
I really like that edge room. Like Lawrence, Nwoso, and Hall are, I mean, they give you everything you want, and you hope Ivy or two steps up, or you have a draft pick to work with, obviously, and then worst case scenario, you bring in a moderate veteran to bring into camp, or you go out and you trade for somebody. I mean, you've got 12 draft picks currently in 2027. Use one of those or two to package to bring somebody in. I mean, they have some tools to solve that issue if it becomes an issue, but I don't mind that Lawrence, Nwoso, Hall combo plus one. Like, where is that one going to come from? And what level of player does it need to be on the field in a 4-man rotation 50% of the time, like Mafe was? I mean, you don't want your other players. You don't want a DeMarcus Lawrence to have to play 75% of the snaps.
No. Or
Nwoso to play 75% of the snaps. I mean, those guys could, but would break down quickly.
Well, yeah. DeMarcus Lawrence is older, and he's best used in a smaller role where he can be dominant, but not be forced to hold up over everything. Uchenna Nwoso is great moving forward. He's one of the most efficient pass rushers in the NFL, and I think people forget that. In terms of pressure rate, when he gets upfield as well as anybody. Where he struggles is against the run and dropping back and those kind of things. But if you can change his usage so that he's moving forward all the time, damn, he's good. And then Hall kind of does everything. I mean, he's not as good at coverage as Mafe, but nobody is. But his ability to get after the quarterback and set an edge and drop back, like, he's a good player. You want all of those guys playing, around 50% of the snaps. Maybe you could let Hall play 60%. But somewhere in there, you need more, right? You need someone to come in and do what Boye Mafe did. And it could be a draft pick. It could be someone that is currently not on the roster in terms of, a veteran. But you got to find someone who can at least just do the things and help your defense out and give guys a rest. And I'm currently staring at the list of free agents that are available, and it's underwhelming. It really is. And so I would be concerned if they don't get a draft pick in order to get that person in there. But
yeah.
Maybe a guy like Tyquan Jones comes in, or Emmanuel Ogba.
Hassan Reddick's out there, Joey Bosa, Leonard Floyd, Von Williams, Kyle Van Noy are still out there.
I don't think they're paying for any of those guys.
But those guys are going to get 1-year deals. at some point that the equation comes together, whether it's after the draft or right before or whatever. The other thing would be, cornerbacks. I mean, you mentioned Lattimore before. Diggs is out there, Tre'Davious White, Emerson, Cam Taylor-Britt, Rasul Douglas is still out there. Shaquille Griffin is also out there still. So they could have some depth there before they head into the draft, just as a hedge.
I thought I read that Tre'Davious White signed about an hour ago.
Maybe he did. That is entirely possible. But overall, we're bringing back 20 out of the 22 starters in the Super Bowl. So we are really, even though Boye Mafe is, a heavy rotation guy, he didn't start the Super Bowl. Kobe Bryant, again, we've got his replacement on the roster if we have to. Kobe does a fine job.
Kobe Bryant and K9 are the two starters of the 22 that aren't coming back. Mm-hmm. But Rick Woolen and Boye Mafe were key guys.
Totally.
Absolutely. And you cannot
and they would be starters on half of the NFL teams.
More than half.
At least half.
More than half. I'd say Kobe Bryant probably half, Rick Woolen probably at least 75%.
And that's why those guys got paid.
Yeah. I mean, the Seahawks went into the dime defense a lot in that last year. And they did that entirely because they needed to get Rick Woolen back on the field. Because it paid for them to be in a situation where they had their best 11 guys. And Rick Woolen was one of their best 11 guys. He happened to be their third best cornerback, but he was still among their best 11 guys. So they went into the dime and they brought both Love and Amari up near the line of scrimmage to account for the fact that they were in the dime. But they did that to get Rick Woolen on the field. Like he was a guy that played a lot of snaps. Like I think it was like 69% of the snaps.
So Seattle hasn't really done anything in free agency overwhelming. And we even after before today's deals were done, we had about 37 million of effective cap space, 40 million overall. After today, it's probably like 35, 32, something like that.
Yeah.
32 million of effective space, cap space. What do you think of this Max Crosby deal, Keith? Max Crosby was traded to the Baltimore Ravens for 2 firsts and a player. That deal was voided by the Baltimore Ravens early yesterday, or was it the day before? Because of medical concerns.
Medical concerns for him. That's crazy.
He did have off-season surgery on a meniscus, but
I know
that was a known deal before the trade.
For a deal that big to suddenly fall apart after it was agreed upon.
And after people had spent all their free agency money.
Before a physical is crazy. I mean, that just doesn't happen. It's absolutely crazy that deal fell through. And so now Max Crosby does not want to return to the Raiders. They just traded him.
Yeah. Well, he came out on social media and said that he's back. He wants to be back. Nothing's happened.
Of course he did.
All that stuff. Yeah.
Of course he did. Yeah.
So, talk to me about Seattle potentially being in on this deal. Now, I've heard before there was like 3 or 4 teams on discussions. Seattle was one of them. And they've been in on discussions for Max Crosby for over a year. The other 3 teams have essentially said we're not in on a future deal. Like Dallas, the Philadelphia Eagles, and one other team I can't remember now have said, we're not in on this anymore.
Yeah, we spent our
where does that leave this
money.
Deal potentially? And is Seattle still interested? And what's going on medically? And obviously Seattle has the money. It would obviously solve our edge situation for this year and make us Super Bowl favorites, dare I say, for 2027 if that deal went through.
Man, that would be, you're talking about adding
the second best pass rusher in the NFL.
I was going to say the third best pass rusher in the NFL, but we're still talking up there. Right, Myles Garrett, and the guy from Dallas who's I don't know. I'm talking
Micah Parsons.
Yeah, there's like too many names floating in my head right now, so I'm not able to parse all of them out. But Max Crosby is freaking legit, and
or did Parsons go to Green Bay?
It's right. He got traded. Yeah, he went to Green Bay now. But still, whatever. We're talking about.
You're right. There's a lot going on.
Yeah. Crosby is a great player at an edge at a tremendously valuable position, but if there's no competition for trade value, his trade value drops, and so it becomes at what point? What is the point where the Raiders decide it's worth it to trade him his salary and to get draft picks? At what level of compensation? Because they traded him for 2 firsts and a player. Dallas was apparently in on it, but they offered a first, a second, and no player. And then, if that's the case, right?
Yeah, I would be on a first and a second, and I would be on a 2026 first, 2027 second, and no player. That would be my initial offer. If they wanted a player, I told you, I said, what about Drew Lock? And the reason I said that, you said, well, he doesn't have any value. I was like, well, Clint Kubiak had him as his number 2 quarterback in Seattle. He knows the playbook. He knows the scheme. He can go in there and like be a second coach on the field. He can kind of hold down the fort, let's be honest, until Mendoza comes in and is able to start. And you give him 4 games, you give him 8 games, whatever it is, where he can kind of learn. He doesn't have to be pressured to be on the field day one. That to me there's a lot of value there for a head coach / offensive coordinator that's building his roster.
Second and Drew Lock, do it. Especially, I mean, I was thinking about this. I'm like, what if you gave up a second round pick in 2026 and a first round pick in 2027? Right? So you give up the second this year, you keep your first because you need a cornerback like freaking badly. And
that value for the second round pick is so low. It's 64 overall. I mean, if it was a second round pick and it was number 35 or whatever, that would be something different. But
yeah, but if you're
a future first,
if you're the Raiders and you're gonna looking at it, well, we don't want to get. We'll take the 32nd pick and we'll see whatever they get next year. You know that next year's second round pick is going to be, 60 at the worst. Because Seattle's bringing back 20 of 22 starters on a team that was absolutely dominant all freaking year and won a Super Bowl in dominant fashion. The Seahawks aren't going away.
No.
So anything that they get a year from now is not going to be significantly.
And if they're the only ones in the negotiation, you either take the deal or you don't.
Yeah. And so a second this year, a first the following year, and Drew Lock. Okay.
I'd even do it in reverse. It wouldn't matter to me. First this year is the draft picks for me are irrelevant. I'll take the player right now to get us back to the Super Bowl back to back. While you have this roster, it's ready to win. It's built to go. It's built to go deep in the playoffs. It's built to win a Super Bowl. You go get that one piece that's like potentially ensure the fact that you're over the top. I would do it in a heartbeat, and I would worry about building my running back room is going to come along. I'm not worried about that. My wide receivers are going to come together, blah, blah, blah. My cornerback is going to suddenly appear, if you get Max Crosby
and you get probably the third best pass rusher in the NFL, you are a backup cornerback, a guy that would play only in the dime, away from having the best defense in the NFL again, but actually be better than the Super Bowl winning being defense. Like, it's so easy to get that dime cornerback. I wouldn't even that wouldn't be considered. You have a defense suddenly. If you could make that trade for Max Crosby, that defense makes you the Super Bowl favorite regardless of what's going on at running back, wide receiver, and right guard.
I
Who
agree.
cares?
I agree. So you and I don't talk about these sorts of things on the show very often, speculation, all that kind of crap. But this one seems to have John Schneider written all over it. Like a second opportunity to come in and like make your case and make a trade work and kind of save the Las Vegas Raiders in a sense.
Well, especially since it's Kubiak and he just went there and he was here, and it's like, okay, we're going to come in and this blew up in your face and we're going to give you a way to save face and still get a couple of good draft picks for this guy that you were trying to trade. And we're going to be awesome. And you're going to be able
and we're going to give you Drew Lock to help your offense and get you on your way. And, or, you know, even Jalen Milroe, just throw in whatever, just get that deal done. To me, that's a no brainer. Now, it all depends, right? And you got to pay him, right? So this is a situation where you're taking on a big contract and a big, probably a renegotiation and a new deal out of it. And yeah, a lot of things would have to happen, but man, talk about exciting a fan base. That would be huge. Now, before we go though, talk to me a little bit about the meniscus thing. If that's a big deal, if he would be expected to be ready at training camp, that sort of thing.
Well, the fact that Baltimore made this trade, gave up what they agreed to give up, 2 firsts, and then backed out, has me worried that it is far worse than what was reported. Because what was reported was a meniscus tear, which, if you've done sports at all, you probably have a small meniscus tear. I'm sure I do, because every time I go and do anything, I have knee pain. And it's not an ACL or anything like that, according to my doctor. It's a meniscus tear. Everybody has one. Who cares? They're professionals. They play through that. But for a team
to play through a small meniscus tear, but
for a team to back out of that kind of trade, for that kind of blockbuster move, this makes it sound to me like it's bad.
Well, but you hear legitimate sources saying different things about how they backed out of it, how they had a deal ready for Trey Hendrickson on the table as soon as they backed out of the deal. And then they used kind of this medical concerns thing as an excuse. And there were a few executives not on record with their names, but off the record, saying this was just a bunch of crap, just BS. Like, it's a bad look on that franchise and the whole, you know, throwing everything at them. So it could go either way. Obviously, you would have to have your medical team do all the stuff, but yeah, if things check out, I mean, he's the kind of warrior kind of player. The only concern I would have, because everything you said was spot on, is the wear and tear. I mean, the guy is just, he's played a lot of snaps. He's still under 30, but he's played a lot of snaps. And every snap he plays like it's the last snap that he's ever going to play. He's just a warrior, a beast.
I would say
he throws his body around. He's reckless.
Look at San Francisco and Nick Bosa, right? Absolutely phenomenal, dominant player who earlier than you would expect can no longer stay healthy. And you want to look at another player, look at Nick Bosa's brother, Joey Bosa. Phenomenal player, tremendous pass rusher who earlier than you would expect suddenly can't stay healthy. Okay, he's a little older now, but he's had multiple years of not being healthy and not playing. And there is a concern that Max Crosby is that same kind of guy, just absolutely dominant, but can't stay on the field for a season and won't be available at the end of the year and in the playoffs because he will have gotten hurt.
Right.
I don't care.
And he would come to an ideal roster with an ideal coach to help manage that. But
where he's not expected to be the only guy because he's on a team with DeMarcus Lawrence and Derek Hall and Uchenna Nwoso, who are all damn good pass rushers in their own right. So he doesn't have to play every snap.
Right. He has to play 50% of the snaps.
Yeah.
Just like Boye Mafe did. Maybe a little bit more. And maybe DeMarcus Lawrence takes a further step back, or Derek Hall doesn't play as many, or Nwoso or whatever. But
or actually, it's probably Nwoso who plays less because he's so good coming forward. Or
he's not on the roster.
He's so not good when he's not coming forward that they would.
I think you bring a guy like Crosby on the roster and you let Nwoso walk because Nwosu's got a $19 million cap hit or whatever. I haven't looked at it recently. I'm just going off memory.
Huge.
Something like $19 million cap hit that you can get 11 of it back or something like that this year. You'd have a dead cap hit, but we don't have any other dead cap on the books. So
I don't know. I still think that they're going to be able to bring Nwoso back. They're going to do it, but they're going to do it with an extension. They're not going to
dead years at the end or whatever.
Here, take a pay cut. They're not going to do that. They're going to be like, all right, you got back on the field last year and we're good after you got back. This is your last year under contract. Let's make it 3 years that are left, but we're going to get that. We got to get those cap numbers down to match your production from the last couple of years and give him a ton of incentives. So if he reaches those, awesome. If not, it doesn't hurt him. And I could totally see them doing that, getting the cap number down, on like a 2-year extension, so 3 years total left. That would be perfect for Nwoso, especially given his age. Like that would be great for him. It would be great for the team. It's kind of just perfect all around.
So if we didn't mention your favorite position group, it's because it's all good. There was no reason for us to kind of go over a couple of these things. Okay, good conversation. We've kind of put free agency to bed. We've kind of put the roster to bed for the time being. Couple things. We will be shifting back to the draft, looking at the prospects and different prospect groups. We've already done quarterback and running back. So we're going to come back and we're going to do tight ends, wide receivers, interior offensive line, tackles, switch over to the defense, get all those done before the draft, have a couple mocks thrown in there, and a draft preview as we get close to the draft. And we're there. We're like, I don't know, what is it, 5-6 weeks now?
Yeah, it's like 5 weeks away from the draft, which is crazy that we're.
Yeah.
God, I just feel like we're so far behind compared to where we've been other years. And the truth is we are, because when the Seahawks were bad, we started working on draft prep in like November. Like at least we didn't talk about it until January, but we started working on it, in October, November.
Do you realize, Keith, that the Seahawks could be favored for and it should be, favored for the 2027 Super Bowl. And we have 12 draft picks next year. And our cap space looks like it's going to be just as good next year as it was this year.
Well, we'll see after the Njigba and Witherspoon contracts, because those two contracts are going to be huge. And
Darnold may want to get paid again, and we might extend him. So, right. It's always something.
Should we mention Geno Smith getting traded back to the Jets?
Wow. Right?
That was talk about an insult. He hated the Jets. He hated his time there. He was miserable.
There's such a redemption story waiting to happen, though. Again, part 3.
Is it?
Yeah, think about it, man. He goes into New York and totally takes command of the room, leads that team back from being broken. They're broken. Their franchise is broken.
That roster is terrible. We're not talking about him taking over from Russell Wilson with a roster.
It can't be any worse than the 2020. It can't be any worse than the 2025 Raiders. Can it?
You're right. It can't be, other than he's a year older.
Yeah,
if I was him, I would contemplate retiring.
I would have too, but
and just I would wait a month, get them right up after the draft, so they don't have a quarterback on the roster, and then give him the middle finger and retire.
He could have made a lot of money by just sitting down this year. But hats off, he wants to play. I don't blame him. He took 10 years off. He didn't have his body didn't have to go through a lot of wear and tear.
Yeah.
All right, let's get out of here. Find Keith on Blue Sky, Twitter at Myers NFL. You can find me at NW Seahawk, the show Seahawks Playbook Podcast, and you know all the rest. So until next time, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Seahawks Playbook Podcast listeners, thanks for joining us for another edition of the show. You can find us on Twitter. Bill is at NW Seahawk, Keith is at Myers NFL, and the show is at Hawks Playbook. You can listen and subscribe to the show at SeahawksPlaybook.com.